Hi y'all, and welcome back to my channel. My camera had what I could only assume was a filming related stroke, so we're gonna try this again. And today what we're gonna be trying is another anti-haul, because if you all know, there is one kind of content that is consistent on my channel, and that's anti-hauls. Being on a low buy, being that I enjoy doing sassy anti-consumerist rhetoric, it kind of comes to the fact that on my channel I have been sort of focusing in a less consumeristic way. I'm trying to review less, I'm not doing hauls, you know, that sort of thing. So I like having at least one type of video that I can continuously do repeatedly, because as of late we've been struggling just a little bit about what content to create on a whole. So sometimes when I'm feeling like I don't know what I'm gonna do an anti-haul. And quite honestly, it's come to the fact that no matter how much we criticize these companies, how much we tear their products a new one, no matter what we do, they still continuously decide to release things that just aren't up to snuff. We're going to be talking about some of those. We got some real doozies up in here, as well as some things that you look at and you're like, yes, had I unlimited funds to burn, I would probably burn them on purchasing some of these products. But with all of that being said, if I talk about a product that you plan on buying, or a product that you have bought that is your end-all be-all absolute holy grail, that is fan-tucking-fastic. You keep doing you, boo-boo. And I'm gonna keep doing me, which is anti-hauling this shiz for one reason or another. So let's just get on into it. Alright, we might as well talk about one that I definitely have some thoughts about, as well as other people have expressed their thoughts about. And that is going to be those sad, pitiful excuses of inclusive face palettes that ABH had the absolute audacity, the absolute balls to release. Y'all know your girl loves a face palette I don't need, that I'm not gonna use. You take those cheek products, you take highlighter, you take blush, you take bronzer, which I don't use, and you put that shiz in a palette, and I turn into shut up and take my money. I believe it was Artist Couture that released some like trio face palettes, and I was like, those are cute. I don't need them. I'm not gonna buy them, but they're cute. These ones from ABH aren't cute. These ones are absolutely atrocious. When you have two face palettes, the medium and the deep, that look basically essentially the same, there's a problem. And part of why there's a problem is because when you have a brand, any of these brands, but you take Anastasia, which clearly they're making enough money, they have the capital to do research. And even research aside, when it comes to inclusivity, typically when the inclusivity is a joke like this, there is a certain amount of hue and cry. We don't like it. We don't want to see it. It's an old and tired thing that shouldn't exist in 2021. I mean, come on, people. But I have to stop and wonder, and I'm like, you have these companies, and I'm like, do they not know? Are they unaware of what happens when other companies pull this kind of shiz? Do we not recall the travesty that was the Beauty Blender Foundation, and they were all like, oh, well, the picture isn't saturated, or the exposure's turned up real high. This isn't really what the shade range looks like. And then lo and behold, when they did release the actual promo whatever, there wasn't a saturation issue, there wasn't an exposure issue, their exclusive, their shade range was just trash. And so you have this, and you've got three palettes, and we've said before, we appreciate companies that at least acknowledge the fact that there is a wider breadth of melanin within people who purchase makeup besides pasty people like me. I am friends with quite a few absolutely beautiful, delicious people of the melanin who love makeup, who buy makeup. And when you see something like this, it's just like, really? That's the best we can do? We released 3 face palettes, one being pasty, a slightly medium one, and a deep one that basically looks the same as the medium one. I just find it a little bit frustrating that these companies don't even pay attention to the reactions of other products that are released that are not inclusive. Like, do they not see the backlash? Do they not realize that this is a thing, that we are fed up with it and we are not going to stand for piddly, non-inclusive releases from these mainstream companies that at this point should know better? We are not here for that sort of thing. And looking at these, they're just, I mean, they look uninspired to begin with. I saw them and I'm like, well, those look dumb. They look like every other blush, highlight, bronzer, whatever palette that any other brand could have released. There wasn't anything interesting in it in that sense. And then you slap on top of it the fact that the shade range is just an absolute joke. It's just like, ABH, do you not know better? Are you not aware of the sort of inclusivity that we are demanding now that shouldn't even need to be demanded? It should just be a thing at this point. And I feel like it says a lot about a company who does this sort of thing, and I'm sure they think that it's amazing. They're all at headquarters giving themselves a big pat on the back, being like, look how inclusive we are for including a deep palette. But when it's not actually deep and it looks like this, I've got some issues, and we all have some issues. I need you to pull these things, take it back, actually think about what tones and shades flatter the deep, dark, delicious melanin. Go back to the drawing board, come up with that, and then release this stuff, because this on its own is just absolutely, it is below standard. It is subpar. This is not the kind of makeup we are looking to release and looking to endorse in 2021. Then if we're talking about palettes, I mean makeup that we didn't ask for and weren't having in 2021, Morphe, which is a company I don't buy from, which is a company I've torn a new one on a multitude of times in videos, they decided that they were going to release what I call the rearranged Boss Mood palette, which I talked about in my palettes I would buy if Morphe didn't suck video. We'll leave that link down below if I remember, but I saw this and I was like, it's like flower artistry or something like that, and I'm like, it is the Boss Mood palette. Maybe a few shades taken out and maybe a few shades put in. We rearranged it a little bit and gave it a new name. But if you've got the Boss Mood palette, you really, really don't need this shizz. I mean, come on, if I can. Ooh, excuse me, burp squat. If I remember, which hopefully I will when editing this because this is me telling myself to remember, I'll put the picture of the new palette, and a picture of the Boss Mood one and being like, these things look very similar. So if you have one, you definitely don't need this one. And I feel that is a failing in a lot of Morphe palettes because they're so big. Any of their 35 palettes, no matter how many different ones they create, there is going to be some sort of significant amount of overlap as I'm seeing in this. I mean, when I was scrolling through the trend moods and stuff like that, I was like, oh, they're re-releasing oh, no, it's a new palette. This isn't the Boss Mood palette. No, it's the flower something something where they took the aesthetic of the Boss Mood and just renamed it something else. I mean, y'all, I know that these companies have been scraping the bottom of the barrel for a while now, but this is really the bottom. There isn't anything about this that gives me any sort of faith in Morphe about how they curate their palettes. For me, it's just literally the Boss Mood palette kind of moved around a little bit and made to look just a little bit different, but it's basically the same thing, and this is where we're at this point. This is why I make these videos, because I cannot stand the utter audacity of these companies to be like, yes, this is the thing we want to release. This is innovation. This is what the masses want. What we want is for y'all to slow your roll a little bit going up on in this. Maybe take some time. Think back to the palettes that you've already released and maybe not release them again in what y'all think is a new palette. Okay, this is one that I have absolutely no idea how much it costs. I have absolutely no idea about the quality, but I am most definitely definitely not gonna be buying. Y'all have heard me talk, or rather rant, about the issues I have with high-end, bougie, super expensive luxury makeup. That is something I will leave to Michelle Wang. I love her, I adore her, that is her shtick. But for me, and my whatevers, I'm not out here buying $65 lipstick, $72 blush. We've talked about a whole bunch of different super pricey high-end products on here. And I feel like I said, I don't know how much this shizz is gonna cost, but I feel like this is gonna tip the scales of expensive. And that is that Monsieur Christian Louboutin has decided to add to his already disgustingly and ridiculously overpriced makeup line. We are going to get eyeshadow palettes and face palettes. And I'm like, oh, this gonna be pricey. This gonna be new levels of aneurysm-inducing price points. I scrolled down, I was like, what's it gonna be? It hasn't been listed yet. If it is, I will put it up somewhere here. But I mean, see, this is the issue I have here with this super expensive price stuff. His lipsticks and his lip glosses cost $90. That is an exorbitant amount of money for any kind of makeup. You know, I've spent $129 on an eyeshadow palette, and I probably regret both times I've done that. So God only knows how much Monsieur Louboutin is going to be charging the premium for these eyeshadow palettes and these face palettes that, quite honestly, don't look that interesting. I like the packaging. It's all sleek and it's got spikes on it and it's very much on brand. I mean, if I could, when he started making handbags, I was like, Jesus, take the wheel. If I had money to burn, I would own that shiz. But what I am not gonna own are the prices that I am fairly sure and certain that are gonna get tacked onto these things. I mean, for the prices they're gonna charge, this stuff better be formula-wise, because it's not really that innovative or interesting color story-wise. Not the eyeshadow palettes, not the face palettes. They're kind of like a bare minimum. I mean, these simple color stories look like something that maybe BH Cosmetics would do. Looking at these, I did not have the immediate, oh, that must be a super high-end, bougie, expensive luxury makeup. You know, I probably should have guessed it because I'm sorry, I feel a lot of the high-end luxury makeup isn't exactly cornering the market on color stories, and I understand. I am not the demographic that they are looking to sell for. Tom Ford would look at me and be like, peasant. You know, so I'm not the one going out here buying this shiz. But even with that being said, I mean, for what they're gonna charge for this, I swear to high heaven, I swear to God, if like the majority of this pricing is due to the packaging, I'm gonna have a fit. My head's gonna explode, my brains are gonna come out of my ears, and I'm gonna be like, that's every time these high-end whatever fashion sort of things, they come in and they do the makeup and they're like, oh, look, and you know, I've had the whatever where they're like, well, makeup and fashion has sort of gone hand in hand for, I know, but Monsieur Louboutin, he wasn't out here doing makeup back when Chanel was, back when YSL was. Comparatively, he's relatively new on the market. But because he's Christian Louboutin and because his shoes cost $2,000 however many dollars, we're gonna put that same sort of premium on a medium that has absolutely nothing to do with what he's famous for. I'm just not about it. His shoes are beautiful, do not get me wrong. If I had some kind of sugar daddy whatever, I'd probably have a couple pairs just because. But I don't. And I'm poor. And I don't need to be buying his expensive makeup because I can't afford his shoes. Because if I can't afford his shoes, I can't afford his makeup. Okay, let's talk about something that's a little less offensive. This is something that, like I said, if I had money to burn, I would probably try these out. They look interesting. I think it's a good product for the company. And these are the KVD The Mod Con Liquid Gel Blush. I do give myself a little pat on the back. I said that I feel like moving forward in 2021, we're looking for a more natural, a more fresh-faced, a more healthy complexion. makeup trend. As such, I've seen a lot of companies come out with these like, you know, cream blushes, cream products, things to make your skin look dewy and healthy, which I am all about. I am using the Natasha Denona Love face palette today. I love it. Makes my skin look uber healthy and gloss-like. But y'all know that aside from the Natasha Denona Love and the Bloom and Glow blush palette, I don't do cream. I don't do liquid. Colourpop released like these whipped whatevers. I know there were the cloud paints from Glossier. Now KVD's got these gel blushes. I think it's a really good product for the company. I think that this is something that they've released that I'm like, yes, that looks good. Create standout, good, consistent products that are going to be these permanent things in your line that people can use and buy and continue to be their tried and true. Love the powder blushes. Love their lip vinyls. I would be super interested and intrigued in trying these, but I just don't have the financial capital to be like, I'm gonna blow $24 on a single blush that I don't know if I'm actually going to use. Although I think I would be slightly more inclined to use a blush like this than I would to get like a cream compact one, just because I think these might last a little bit longer. Like expiration wise, some of the colors look really, really pretty. This is a case of, I mean, if I had money, I would purchase these, but I don't have money. If any of y'all have tried these and think they're good, definitely let me know, because you guys know there is a small part of me that has that tiny little leftover bit of devotion to the company. So seeing them come out with something like this that looks like a nice solid release gives me a little bit of hope for them. But hope aside, hope doesn't pay the bills, so I won't be buying these. We might as well talk about another inclusive issue product that I have. This is from Benefit, and Benefit is a company that definitely suffers from you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They're just like, we have the professional, we have this, we have this, we have these tried and true products that we keep attaching new things to in an attempt to revive the hype around those products. They're like, look, the professional, it's been out for 12,000 years, but it's still new and hip and young. I feel like the last thing they did that was actually a good solid release was the cookie and those two highlighters. One of y'all sent them to me, and the cookie one changed my life just like it changed everybody else's life. But other than that, they've just been sort of doing the same thing over and over again. And in theme, they were like, we're gonna take the Hula, which is a product that they've redone and extended and added on to a myriad of times. They're gonna do the Hula Glow, which I will admit, if I were someone who bronzed or contoured, I would probably want to do one that does give me a nice healthy glow. I'm not really into stark whatevers. I like a healthy complexion. And so when you've got a product like this that is gonna have a finish that's gonna support that healthy complexion, I look at it and I'm like, okay, all right, that could be interesting. But the interesting stops when you have, I believe they released 3 or 4 shades of this, and the darker shades, just, you turn your head, you cock your head a little bit, and you go, okay, all right, that's gonna work for this people, but I can guarantee you that that darkest shade isn't gonna work on a lot of the delicious melanin. It's just not happening. And I mean, like I said with the ABH rant, these companies, I mean, we keep making excuses and oh this and oh that. There aren't any excuses to be had at this point. These companies, no, they're not dumb. Inclusivity is a thing. It is something that should be being done. We've got smaller companies like Midas Cosmetics that were able to create those contour and those blush and highlight palettes that had one very nice for the pasty, and then they had one for the deep, dark, delicious melanin. And if they can do that with a lot less capital than I know Benefit has, why can't they do it? Why can't they take these things and take them just a little bit deeper? I don't understand this nonsense, and it frustrates me because you see these companies doing it over and over and over again, irregardless of any backlash, of any news. I mean, there have been multiple blow-ups about companies not being inclusive with their shade ranges. This has been a thing that's been happening for a long time. When it comes to a majority of complexion products, a lot of significant mainstream companies really do ignore that demographic, and that's not okay. You know, I remember they had the Hula one forever, and then they finally released a deeper one, but the frustrating thing is how the deeper complexions seem to be an afterthought, seem to be an extension, rather than an actual thing released in that core product. It ain't just white people out here buying makeup. And so when you see these really sad, pitiful, just color choices, you're like, who was their control group? Who did they get to decide that that darkest shade was gonna be the darkest that they were gonna go? It's like, it's not that hard. It's not that difficult to extend it. And when you have companies that you look at these shade ranges and you're like, say we have a foundation range that's like 25 shades, and you've got 15 shades for light people, and then you've got 5 shades for the middle people, and then you've got 5 shades for the deep people. It's like there's just as much of a breadth of color variance in the deep dark people as there is in the pasty people. You know, it's not like this, oh look, here's this brown shade and this is gonna work for all the deep dark delicious melanin people. No, it's not. No, it's not. This is one shade. No. They've got undertones. They've got different colors. You know what I mean? The frustration level that I have with these companies and the patience that I have is dwindling to absolutely nothing. I do not have the time for this nonsense. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to look at this and be like, yeah, this is okay. This is all right. This is a good level of representation. And I believe I've talked about it before. I can't remember what video I was talking about, but I did this whole thing talking about how the fact that we aren't able to produce products for people of darker skin tones has got so many different awful, subtle microaggressions and all these things sort of lead into those awful reasons why they do not cater to darker complexions. And I have reached the point where I just can't handle it. We know better. It's 2021. And especially in the aftermath of all of this blow up when it comes to that, if you can't take all of that happened and apply it to the products that you're releasing, I have so much less faith in you as a company. I'm just not having it. Then it wouldn't be an anti-haul for me if I didn't have at least one Colourpop release here. And this, for the first time in I don't know how long, it's not a big giant collection. It's not a stupid pointless palette. It's not a intellectual licensing cash grab. What it is Colourpop being like, oh wait, after all these things that we've released and all this stuff that we've got, we used to make Super Shock shadows. What happened to that? And they decided to do a throwback, and they were being like, we're gonna release new Super Shock shades, which I appreciate to a point as being something that's not a huge giant collection, that's not a licensing cash grab, kind of bringing it back to basics and being like, oh look, we're still that cute indie company that made it on the market with our Super Shock shadows. I feel like it's a case where Colourpop has just been releasing so much stuff over and over and over again, and they were like, wait, we've still got these things. We could release some of these. And so in the midst of all their fourth-rate beauty releases, all their giant collections and everything, they're like, all right, let's take it back and let's release some Super Shock shadows, because people are going to be like, oh, look at the Colourpop Super Shock shadows. Oh, I love those. Those are so nostalgic. Look at these new shades. I mean, I've never tried the Super Shock shadows. Y'all know I'm not a fan of eyeshadow that needs to be applied with my finger. It's just not a thing that I'm down with. And I just thought it was kind of funny because Colourpop has gone so far from their Super Shock shadows. Like, they'll occasionally release some with a big collection. You'll have 2 here or 1 here or a duo over here, you know, that's released with a large, huge, giant collection, but they haven't really paid much attention to the Super Shock shadows on their own. So I think it's kind of funny that after all these other releases, all this other stuff, they're like, behold, Super Shock shadows. I'm not gonna buy them because I don't use them. I don't need single shadows. If I'm gonna have, wait, I do use single shadows. I don't buy single shadows that come in componentry. I need something in a cardboard sleeve that I can slap into a magnetic palette and call it a day. I've decluttered my Urban Decay. I've decluttered my KVD. You know, I'm just not about that life. I'm not here to give Colourpop any back pats or any kind of whatever because they've decided to go back to releasing new shades of their Super Shock shadows. It's like they had the Super Shock shadows. They realized there was more capital in creating these big, huge, overhyped collections. And they're like, wait, we need to show that. It's like a YouTuber that's trying to be like, I haven't sold out. I'm still relatable. And we have Colourpop, who's trying to be the relatable brand by being like, look, we still do Super Shock shadows. We're not just all about the big collections. Take a throwback to our roots, which I feel they have left way, way behind. They have come a very long way from being Super Shock shadows, Super Shock highlighters, Super Shock blushes. They've gone from being that nice indie makeup company that was so wonderful to this big giant mecca that's more interested in creating these overhyped whatevers than they are to staying true to who they used to be. And I'm not saying growth is a bad thing. I'm just saying the way that Colourpop deals and creates all these releases, it's a little bit like a too little, too late, where they're just like, oh, look, we still have these. We still do these. We're still this. I do not need Colourpop to be all this type of like relatable up in here. It's like, no, you've gone. You're far gone. You're a giant, huge, ginormous corporation at this point. I've come to terms with that. I need you to come to terms with that for your own well-being. I know some people are die hard for those Super Shock shadows, and they're probably really happy that there are new colors here, but I just look at it and I'm like, well, I guess that's where we're at now. And those are all the products that I have for you today. I could talk about all this shiz all day, every day, which I will probably continue to do because I enjoy it, and y'all seem to enjoy it as well. Would love to hear what y'all have to say about these products below. You purchased them, you're planning on purchasing them, what you think. I love hearing y'all's thoughts or being like, well, you anti-hauled this, but it's actually really good because I haven't tried this shiz. I can't say nothing about the quality. So I love hearing what y'all have to say about the products that I talk about. But thank you guys so much for watching. I love you, and as always, keep it real. Mwah!